She only spoke one sentence. Not in English. Not to a customer. Just one quiet line, whispered in Mandarin to her grandmother over the phone. But by the next morning, Naomi Brooks was fired. No warnings. No explanation. No meeting. Just erased, like she'd done something unspeakable. Only one man heard her that day. A billionaire at table 9. So, what did the billionaire sitting 2 tables away hear in those foreign words that made him pull the trigger? It was just after 2:30 on a Thursday. The lunch crowd had thinned out at Juniper and Ash, that ultra-polished fusion restaurant tucked into the heart of Westwood. The kind of place where the scallops came 2 to a plate and cost more than your phone bill. Inside, everything gleamed. Ambient lighting glowed like candlelight. Plates looked like exhibits. Music hummed low enough not to disturb a business deal. The people? Polished. Expensive. Polite in a way that made you feel small if you didn't fit their world. Naomi stood near the bar, quietly polishing a tray that didn't need it. Her black uniform fit like a second skin, part armor, part invisibility cloak. 3 years she'd worn it. She moved fast, kept her head down, never faked a smile, but always delivered one. To the staff, she was the unshakable one, the wall. Nothing fazed her. Not the sloppy drunks. Not the cold stares. Not even the guests who tossed their napkins like she wasn't standing right there. But what happened that afternoon? It had nothing to do with bad service. And everything to do with a sentence spoken too softly, in a language most people chose not to understand. Naomi felt the subtle buzz in her pocket. One glance. Her heart skipped. It was Nai, her grandmother, calling all the way from Taichung. That never happened in the middle of the day. Only birthdays or bad news. She quietly slipped behind the service wall, wedged between the espresso machine's hiss and a wall of imported wines, and answered in Mandarin. Her voice dropped, soft and careful. Just a few lines. Something about blood pressure pills. A mix-up at the clinic. Take the pink bottle, not the blue. Less than 30 seconds. She hung up, took a breath, tucked her phone away, and walked right back into the dining room like nothing happened. What she didn't know. Someone had been watching. Kindly do us a quick favor. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you're touched by this story. Your support keeps us creating and sharing more powerful stories as this one. Thank you. Now, let's get back to our story. Preston Langford. Table 7. VIP lounge. Crystal glass in one hand, contempt in the other. He wasn't just any guest, he was the guest. Silicon Valley royalty. Local kingmaker. A man so precise, the staff measured his water by the cube. Naomi had served him for over a year without issue. But today, something cracked. He stared, not with interest, but with quiet judgment. The kind that folds itself into power. His jaw clenched when she spoke Mandarin. A twitch at the corner of his mouth betrayed something darker. He never said a word. But the next morning, her name disappeared from the schedule. No warning. No explanation. Just gone. And Naomi Brooks, steady, unshakable, always early, always quiet, found herself on the outside of a place she helped keep flawless because of one moment of humanity spoken in a language someone else chose to fear. When Naomi wasn't carrying trays and memorizing wine lists, she went home to a quiet one-bedroom tucked behind an aging stucco building off Melrose Avenue. Rent-controlled. Modest. Safe. The place was full of plants she named like old friends, leaves curling toward her voice as she whispered to them while watering. On her desk sat a battered laptop, screen flickering with unfinished poems and half-buried thoughts she only had the courage to write, never say. Most of her free hours were spoken for. They belonged to Nai, her grandmother. The woman who raised her after the accident that stole her parents when she was just 7. Nai took her back to Taiwan soon after, taught her how to make scallion pancakes from scratch, sat her down with Chinese soap operas and a cup of ginger tea. loved her fiercely, but with discipline. Mandarin wasn't just a language in their home. It was comfort. It was prayer. It was the first sound Naomi heard when life stopped making sense. By 13, they'd moved back to the US. Her Mandarin never faded. It clung to her tongue like muscle memory, surfacing in solitude, in dreams, and in moments when she didn't have to filter herself. But in Westwood, none of that seemed to matter. People saw a young black woman in a sleek apron serving $100 entrees and made snap decisions. That she was local, that she probably grew up a block away, that she only spoke English, that the job was just a stopgap. Naomi didn't argue. She'd learned silence was sometimes safer than clarity. One afternoon, a customer overheard her chatting with her Salvadoran friend on the phone and said, "I didn't know you spoke Spanish." "It's Mandarin," she replied softly. The man blinked, confused, as if she'd just spoken in code, as if being more than one thing didn't compute. Inside the Velvet Spoon, the meals changed every week, but the assumptions? Those stayed exactly the same. Vanessa, her manager, had the kind of smile that said, "Keep it moving." Not warm, not mean, just corporate. She used to seat guests with grace. Now she ran the floor like a machine. Crisp shirts, no chatter, eyes forward, and don't ask too many questions. Naomi wasn't showered with praise, but everyone leaned on her. Quietly, she handled the chaos, took extra shifts, smoothed over messes, never made noise. That's why they called her solid. Not star, not standout, just solid. Her closest ally? Kenji. Sharp-tongued, good-hearted, and halfway through a decade of bussing tables without missing a beat. Half Filipino, all backbone. He had Naomi's back from day one. They clicked during those after-hours cleanups, laughing over scraps of cold fries, sharing stories about being invisible in rooms they kept running. "You ever feel like we're wearing two uniforms?" Kenji asked once. Naomi didn't flinch. "One for them, one for us." She never let it harden her. Life had already tried. So she kept it moving, worked hard, sent money to Nainai, and saved quietly for a future she barely let herself imagine. Culinary school. And Preston Langford? He barely registered. Another rich man with money in his wallet and vinegar in his mouth. He came through often, always with a new date and the same dismissive smirk. Left a 15% tip like it was an act of charity. Naomi stayed unbothered. Until that Thursday. Rain tapped the windows like it wanted in. The dining room was nearly empty. One couple argued quietly over prenups. And Preston sat alone, staring at the glass like it had personally betrayed him. Naomi had no idea he was watching. To her, it was just a quick check-in, nothing loud, nothing dramatic. Just a granddaughter stepping aside for a quiet moment to calm a worried voice from across the ocean. She stood tucked near the espresso machine, away from the main floor, hidden behind the hum of the wine cooler. The call wasn't long. 30 seconds, maybe less. Soft Mandarin floated out of her like breath, gentle, low, full of care. Her grandmother's voice crackled through the line, concerned about a medication mix-up. Naomi listened, reassured, and told her she'd fix it after work. No raised tones, no disruption, just love, wrapped in another language. But that was enough to sour the air. Preston noticed, and whatever he felt, annoyed, confused, threatened, he didn't hide it. His jaw stiffened, his eyes narrowed. He stared at her like she'd broken some invisible rule. And Vanessa? She caught the shift immediately. Always quick to read Preston, always eager to stay on his good side, like one disapproving glance from him might cost her more than a job. That's when the quiet changed. Not just quiet. Tense. Expectant. Like a storm was coming, but no one wanted to be the first to feel the rain. She ended the call, slid her phone back into her apron, and walked straight to table 6. Someone had asked for a sparkling water refill. But table 7 wasn't empty. Preston Langford sat there, posture relaxed, but his expression tight. From his seat, he'd had a perfect view of everything. His whiskey sat untouched, arms crossed, eyes locked, face unreadable. Naomi didn't notice the stare, not right away. She was still moving like clockwork, floating from table to table like she always did. But Kenji caught it. He was by the bar, folding napkins with mechanical focus, watching the way Preston tracked her. Like something had shifted in the room and no one else noticed. Naomi approached him with the same grace she offered every guest. "Would you like another drink, Mr. Remington?" He took his time, looked her up and down, slow, deliberate. "Didn't realize this place hired spies," he said, voice low but sharp. Naomi blinked. "I'm sorry. You speak Chinese now." His tone carried a quiet accusation. "That's what I heard, right?" She nodded, confused. "Yes. I was speaking to my grandmother." He scoffed. "Of course. Your grandmother." The pause that followed felt loaded. "If you're going to take private calls on the clock," he said, leaning in just a bit, "maybe use a language the rest of us understand." Her spine straightened. "I was off the floor. It was a personal call. I apologize if it bothered you." He waved her off like she wasn't worth another second. She didn't push, didn't argue, just turned and walked away, not out of fear, but out of restraint. Kenji caught her eye. His brow creased, mouthing, "What was that?" She shook her head. The shift dragged after that. Thick, awkward, like trying to move through syrup. Remington didn't ask for anything else. Didn't complain. Just stared out the window, tapped away at his phone, signed the check and left. Not a word. Not a glance. Naomi tried to shrug it off. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe he was just one of those people who felt uncomfortable hearing something they didn't understand. But later, near the lockers, Kenji was waiting. That was weird. She paused. "What?" "The way he looked at you, like you were speaking in code or something." She zipped up her hoodie, silent. People act strange when they can't put you in a box. "You think he'll report it?" Kenji asked. Naomi just shrugged. "If he does, he does." There was no defiance in her voice, just exhaustion. The kind that builds quietly over time. She hadn't broken any rules. She knew that. But still, something in her gut told her this wasn't over. That night, she made a simple meal, stir-fried greens and rice, and called Nai back. They laughed over something silly. Nai asked if the California sun was still showing off, and Naomi asked how the crowds were at the morning market. It felt normal, comfortable. She went to bed early and didn't have trouble falling asleep. But the next morning, her name wasn't on the schedule. At first, she figured it was a mix-up. Maybe she swapped a shift and forgot. Maybe it was Vanessa being disorganized again. She walked to the office in the back. The door was cracked open, and that's when the unease started. Vanessa was already inside, a manila folder on the desk in front of her, fingers twitching like they didn't know what to do. Naomi knocked lightly. "Hey, I noticed I'm not. Can you come in for a second?" Vanessa cut in, eyes still on the folder. Naomi stepped in. The door clicked shut behind her. The air changed. She sat down, hands folded in her lap, posture tall. She wasn't anxious, not yet, but something about Vanessa's vibe felt off. Like the walls were pressing in. Vanessa cleared her throat, finally looked up, reached for the folder like it might save her from whatever she was about to say. So she started. "I wanted to speak with you in person because I respect you." That was it. The warning bell. People only say that when something's about to hit the fan. Naomi kept her expression still. "Okay," she said quietly. Vanessa shifted in her seat. "There have been some concerns about your behavior yesterday." Naomi blinked. Behavior? Vanessa opened the folder in front of her, completely blank inside, like a stage prop. A guest raised some discomfort over how you handled yourself during the shift. Specifically, the phone call. Naomi's brow tightened. I wasn't on the floor. I stepped back behind the wall. It was personal. It was brief. Vanessa nodded slowly, as if pretending to hear. It's not just the call. It's how it came across. Professionalism, brand alignment, guest perception. Naomi's voice dropped a note colder. Because I wasn't speaking English. That pause, that flicker in Vanessa's eyes, that was the truth. The part she wouldn't say out loud. Some guests get uneasy when things feel unfamiliar, Vanessa offered, voice tight. So, Naomi said, steady now. I'm losing my job because someone didn't like hearing Mandarin in a restaurant that sells Sichuan pork belly. Vanessa winced. It's not personal. You've been reliable, but we have to uphold a certain environment. Naomi felt something twist inside. Not rage, but a deeper kind of hurt. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that watches someone shrink in their seat, too scared to stand beside you. This came from Preston, isn't it? Vanessa hesitated, then gave the softest nod. He's a major investor, she said. You know how these things go. Naomi let out a slow breath through her nose. No anger. No argument. Just resignation. You could have said something, she murmured. You could have told him I didn't do anything wrong. Vanessa's voice barely registered above a whisper. I have bills too, Naomi. I don't call the shots. Naomi stood up, her posture straight, her voice steady. Then don't pretend this is about respect. Just give me the papers. Vanessa slid a final paycheck across the desk, along with a printed separation letter. In soft gray ink, the words did not meet brand expectations floated like a slap wearing perfume. Naomi didn't bother reading the rest. She folded it, pocketed it, and walked out. Kenji was already waiting by the lockers. One look at her, and his face dropped. They really went through with it? Naomi gave a short nod. Because of a phone call? He asked. I guess speaking Mandarin's considered a red flag now. Kenji leaned back, arms folded, his jaw tight. They didn't even try to hide it, he said. He didn't like not knowing what you were saying. That's all it took. Naomi kept her voice low. She was too tired to yell. People think racism screams. They think it stomps in waving signs or spitting slurs. She paused. Most of the time, it just whispers through smiles, uses words like professionalism and fit. That's how it really works. She slipped off her apron, folded it slow and neat, and laid it down like she was leaving something sacred behind. You sure you don't want to fight it? Kenji asked. HR? Go public. Naomi hesitated. Her stomach wanted justice, but her soul was just tired. I need to breathe first, she said. Outside, the sunlight stabbed a little harder than usual. Same streets, same sky, but somehow it all felt heavier. She got into her car, closed the door, and just sat there. Engine off. Music off. Just silence. Then she pulled out her phone and sent a text. Got let go today. I'll explain later. Love you. She opened her photos, scrolled to one of her and Nai making dumplings last winter. Stared at it for a long time. What Naomi didn't know, what none of them could see coming, was how far her quiet would echo. Naomi didn't rush to speak up. She wasn't looking for a fight. She just needed air. The next morning, she stayed in. Nai called, concerned, but Naomi brushed it off with a soft voice and a practiced lie. Just taking a little time off, she said. No need to stress her grandmother over something this ridiculous. And that's exactly how it felt. Ridiculous, unjust, and deeply tiring. But Kenji? He couldn't hold it in. That afternoon, he dropped a post in a private Facebook group for LA restaurant workers. No names. No details. Just the truth. A coworker of mine got fired. Not for being late. Not for breaking rules. She answered a 30-second phone call in Mandarin at an Asian fusion restaurant. A customer didn't like it. Now she's gone. Let that sink in. He thought maybe a few people would see it. But by nightfall, It had spread like wildfire. Screenshots hit public forums. Comments flooded in. Unreal. What are they so afraid of? Happened to my aunt, too. Different words, same prejudice. Then someone guessed the restaurant. Then someone confirmed it. By the end of the next day, the Velvet Spoon wasn't trending for its cuisine. It was trending for all the wrong reasons. Photos of the menu hit the internet. One-star reviews swarmed Yelp. And then came the kicker. Someone unearthed a video of Preston Langford speaking at a tech event and reposted it with a caption, "This the guy who fires women for speaking to their grandma in Mandarin?" Naomi's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Journalists, supporters, strangers, even a few conspiracy theorists that gave her a much-needed laugh. But she didn't respond. Not yet. She needed space. Meanwhile, Vanessa was scrambling to hold the walls up. Staff started quitting mid-shift. A hostess walked out and never came back. One chef tossed a full tray of duck confit into the trash and left without a word. That night, Kenji called.
"They're losing it," he said.
Trying to hand out NDAs like candy. Naomi raised an eyebrow. NDAs? For what? They think we'll talk. She let out a dry chuckle. Bit late for that. Because by then, the truth was already out. And there was no putting it back. Naomi sat in silence for a moment. "I never asked for any of this." "I know," Kenji replied. "But you didn't do anything wrong." She leaned back on her couch, eyes fixed on the ceiling above her, lost in thought. "You think I should say something? I think you should do what feels true to you," he said. "But just know, people are paying attention now." The next morning, Naomi opened her laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before she finally began to type. It wasn't a rant. It wasn't a cry for sympathy. Just the truth. "My name is Naomi. Last week, I lost my job at a Westwood restaurant because a customer didn't like that I spoke Mandarin on a short phone call with my grandmother. I wasn't rude. I wasn't late. I wasn't unprofessional. I was just talking to someone I love in a language that lives inside me. And that was enough to get me fired. If you've ever felt dismissed, judged, or silenced because of how you sound or where you're from, I see you." She posted it on Twitter. By nightfall, the post had crossed 40,000 likes. Podcast hosts reached out. Journalists called. Her words were reposted by an Asian American advocacy group, then amplified again by Black media platforms. And suddenly, this wasn't just about her. It was about language, identity, bias, belonging. In her replies, people shared their own pain, stories of being told to speak English, mocked for their accents, let go because they didn't match the vibe. Naomi had struck a nerve, and the world was listening. Naomi read every single comment she could stomach. Some broke her, some lit a fire in her chest, but most reminded her she wasn't the only one carrying stories like this. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't alone. Nai called again. "I saw the news," she said gently in Mandarin. "Are you alright?" "I'm okay," Naomi replied. "Just tired." "You've always had a powerful voice, even as a little girl." Naomi let out a soft laugh. "Guess I had to lose my job to remember that." But this story wasn't done yet. Not until she looked the people who silenced her straight in the eye. 3 days after everything blew up, an unfamiliar name slid into her inbox. The subject line read, "Request for conversation, Juniper and Ash response." The email was stiff, impersonal, and cold. "Naomi, we are aware of the recent attention regarding your departure from the Velvet Spoon. We would like to discuss a resolution and ensure both parties are heard. Please let us know if you're open to a brief meeting. J. Roth, Legal Counsel." She didn't answer right away. She read it once, then again, then one more time slower. Then she shut her laptop and walked. No destination, just movement. 20 minutes later, the ocean met her like an old friend. The waves said more than that email ever could. They didn't want fairness. They wanted silence. But Naomi had crossed a line she wasn't willing to backtrack from. Fear didn't fit anymore. The next day, she accepted the meeting. They met in a bland office near Westwood. Roth wore a gray suit and a voice that sounded like hold music. Vanessa was already there, perched on the edge of her chair like she wanted to disappear. Naomi didn't dress to impress. Just jeans, a white tee, no makeup, no mask, just her. "Let's be direct," Roth began. "We're prepared to offer a formal apology and financial compensation in exchange for mutual closure." Naomi raised an eyebrow. "Closure for who?" Roth's tone flattened. "We understand this has been emotional, but the restaurant is receiving backlash threats, even. The brand is suffering." Naomi didn't blink, because now she knew exactly what suffering looked like, and it wasn't what they were describing. Naomi leaned in, voice calm but sharp. "You're protecting a brand. I lost my paycheck and my dignity over a 30-second call to my grandmother." Roth's face tightened. "We're not here to rehash the details." She turned to Vanessa. "You knew it was wrong. You knew." Vanessa looked down, lips pressed thin. "I showed up.
I did my job.
I didn't slack.
Didn't cause drama.
And the moment someone powerful got uncomfortable, I became disposable." Roth shifted in his seat. "We're offering 3 months severance, plus a formal apology." Naomi let the quiet stretch. Long enough that Roth looked away first. "I want that apology public," she said. "No NDA. No spin. I want you to admit what happened, plainly. I was fired because a man didn't like hearing a language he didn't understand. That's the truth. And if you can't say it, we don't have a deal." Roth hesitated. Then, unexpectedly, Vanessa spoke. "We'll issue a public statement." Her voice cracked. "You didn't do anything wrong.
I should have said something.
I didn't want to lose my job." Naomi met her eyes. "I lost mine." That same afternoon, the Velvet Spoon posted across all platforms. "We acknowledge the dismissal of Naomi Brooks was not aligned with our values. Speaking a second language, especially one rooted in family and identity, should never be a cause for termination. We sincerely apologize to Naomi and the larger community." Internal policy changes are already underway. The response? Split down the middle. Some praised it. Others rolled their eyes and called it damage control. Naomi didn't care. She had told the truth, and now it lived outside of her. A week later, she and Kenji sat on a bench by the water, sipping sodas, shoes off. "You did it," he said, handing her a cold can. She shrugged. "I didn't do it for the win." "No," he smiled. "You did it so they'd stop pretending not to see." She smiled back. Tired but real. "People talk about finding your voice like it's lost somewhere. But I never lost mine. I just kept lowering it." Kenji nodded. "They made you think it was too loud." She looked out at the ocean. It wasn't. It never was. Naomi didn't just lose a job. She gained something louder than silence. A voice spoken without fear. In any language. For anyone. Anywhere. Naomi never returned to restaurant life. Not because the door was closed, but because she was done dimming herself to fit inside it. A few weeks after everything unraveled, she used part of the hush money, settlement, to enroll in a quiet little culinary course at a community college. No marble counters, no clout-chasing kitchens, just real people, real food, and sharp blades that didn't judge where you were from or what you sounded like. She started a blog on the side. At first, it was simple. Photos of scallion pancakes that reminded her of Nine-Eyes Kitchen, bowls of soy-braised eggs, spoonfuls of beef noodle soup. But the words kept coming. She wrote about what it felt like to speak more than one language and still be made to feel small. About being Black and fluent in Mandarin. About the quiet tension of never quite fitting into someone else's box. And, to her surprise, people listened. Messages poured in. A woman in Oakland confessed she hadn't spoken Spanish at work in a decade, afraid it would make her less professional. A high schooler from Fresno said he played Naomi's blog post in front of his whole class during a speech on cultural identity. Even readers from halfway across the globe chimed in with their own stories, their own silences, their own moments of being misunderstood. Naomi never set out to become a voice for anything. But sometimes, the world hands you a mic when you least expect it, and this time, she didn't hand it back. She still talks to her Nai every few days. Still in Mandarin. Only now, Naomi doesn't duck into corners or lower her voice. She answers on speaker. Out loud. In the open. If someone has a problem with it, that's on them, not her. Because here's the truth. Silence doesn't save you. It just makes it easier for others to pretend you don't exist. Naomi didn't launch a protest. She didn't throw a fit or demand revenge. All she did was speak. And for some people, that was enough to feel threatened. But her words weren't meant to stir trouble. They were meant to say, I'm here. I belong. I'm not hiding. That was more than enough. So, if you've ever been told to shrink yourself, to stay small, to trade your comfort for someone else's approval, don't. You don't owe your silence to anyone. Not to keep a job. Not to make others feel safe in their ignorance. You matter. Your voice matters.
So speak.
Speak clearly.
Speak boldly.
Speak in the language that raised you. Speak in the voice that remembers who you are. If this story stirred something in you, if it reminded you of a moment you couldn't explain, a silence you had to carry, or a truth you've lived through, then like it, share it, and subscribe. Not for the clicks, but to remind someone else out there that they're not crazy and they're not alone. Because truth travels faster when we stop pretending we're the only ones who feel it.